Okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our pry bar and we're going to come in the back right over here, right through this little portion right here, and we're going to push this piston is going to be pushed back into the bore. The caliper is going to come this direction, and that brake pad is going to stay right there. Okay. And that's pushed in about as far as it's going to go. Now the reason we're going to check these slide pins here is to make sure that these slide back and forth and they're not frozen, but I can tell you already they are clear. They are a little stiff, but they do slide back and forth pretty freely. We are going to clean these up and we're going to lubricate them so it'll slide easier, but you can see it does slide. A little tight, but it does slide. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take out that 14mm bolt there and there. I tell you this all the time, just be careful with these bolts, you don't want to lose them. We're going to put these off to the side. And we're just going to take our caliper and we're just going to relocate it out of the way right now. But you can see the piston is pushed back into the bore as far as it'll go. All right, next thing we're going to do now is we're going to take off that bolt right there. So let's grab our impact. I'm going to take off that bolt right there. And then we're going to hold the back with that wrench just to keep it from spinning. All right. Now remember I told you before, if that bolt is frozen inside here or it doesn't move freely, do not take a hammer and bang on here because you're going to damage the threads. Take the nut, screw the nut back onto it just like this. You take your socket, put your socket over the bolt like that, and you hit it. I'm going to trade spots here. All right, one thing you do not want to do is damage those threads. If you damage the threads, you won't be putting this bolt back in there. You'll be making a trip to the dealer to get it moving. All right. Then now after we have it moving, we just put a little drift on here like this, a metal drift. Tap it. Now, make sure when your bolt comes out, you don't lose this washer here because that needs to be on there. All right, now we'll take our punch out like this. And now that moves fairly easy. It's not really that tight. You get in here with a screwdriver like this and just pry it. And you see how it moves? It'll pop up just like that. And now you have access to both this bolt here and that bolt underneath there. And that is where the other bolt is located, right in there. And now we'll take out that bolt right there, and we're going to take out the other 14mm up on top, and we're going to take that mounting bracket off. Now to get these bolts out in the back here, you may need a short extension such as this, or you could even use a deep socket if you wanted to. You know, we're going to take out the bolts. We're just going to loosen them for now. We're not going to take it out yet. We're going to put this off to the side for now, but we'll come back to that. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take out these bolts right here. Sometimes they can be pretty tight, but what you do is you get on here with a metal drift like this. Or if you don't have the steel, you can use brass as well. We put this on here like this and we strike it fairly firmly to try to break any rust or Loctite or anything like that on there. Now when you put this on, you're not going in perfectly straight because you don't want to damage the threads, the Phillips head. So you're going to have a slight angle. This is exaggerated obviously, but it's going to be a very slight angle just like that so we can break it loose. So let's do that. And when you hit them like that, usually it breaks any kind of rust loose that are holding those in there. Now, if that didn't work, they sell something like this. It's a driver. You could put it on here like this. It's an impact driver. You put it on and you rotate it like this, and you bang the back of it, and when you hit that, it pushes it in and rotates it at the same time, and it breaks it loose. But we don't need that today. Put this off to the side as well. And the last thing we're going to need is, you see there's a little piece right here, there's a little boot. We need to reuse that little boot as well. That's how you get in to adjust your parking shoes in the back. So we need to hold on to this as well. And then we'll just take our rotor off. Okay. Now you see the face right in here? If you take this off and this is all rusted in the back right here, you're going to need to clean all that rust off in the back here, so it doesn't interfere with the brake rotor and cause a pulsating feeling. But this is nice and clean, so we're not going to have to worry about that. This is our replacement, and you're going to line it up with these two screws right here. And there's only one way it can go on, so you can't make a mistake. The screws have to line up, and then you're perfect. All right, now I am going to clean that off with brake cleaner, just so you know. So that's all set. Let me get some brake cleaner. We're going to clean this up. And you know what? Before we do anything, let's put that piece back in right there. Now before you put this whole thing back together, you want to put this in first, because I've seen them already where you put them in there, and I've done it already, where you get in here and you push this in, and you push this piece right through and it falls inside. So you may have to take the rotor back off. So we're going to do that now. Just push it in a little bit on the corner, and it goes right in just like that. All right. Let me clean this up, and then we're going to go over the bench. And what we're going to do now is, I'm going to show you. We're going to take these brake pads out, just like that. We're going to put them off to the side, and we are going to change the hardware kit. This is the hardware kit. You just get underneath here with the screwdriver, just like that. We pry it off like this. And like this. And if this is rusted inside here, which you can see quite a bit of rust on this one, you're going to need to clean this up right inside here. I'm going to take this off and do it on the wire wheel, but if you can't, you could take a file such as this. You come in here with the file and you clean off the rust on here, just like this, to clean all that rust off of there, because rust is your enemy. All right, make sure you get that all cleaned up really well. And once I get this cleaned up, we'll come back and we'll put those clips back on, and then we're going to lubricate these slide pins here. You know what? Let's do the slide pins right now. Take each one out one at a time. You have a little brake cleaner on a rag. Clean it off. You need to get this clean. You take a little bit of the synthetic grease or brake grease, whatever you have. You lubricate it. And then you put it back in just like this here. Now, you see right on the top that little lip right there? You want to push it so that that rubber boot pops right back up onto that lip, just like that. And now you see, it slides nice and easy. And this one, not so easy. All right, so we're going to pull this out. And we're going to do the same thing on this one. Some brake cleaner. We're going to clean it all off just like this. We're going to put a little bit of the silicone on here, not too much, just enough to make it slide. And then we're going to put it right back into that hole right there that it came out of, just like that. And you want to make sure, just like we talked about before, you want to make sure that boot pops right back up where it belongs. See how it slides nice and freely now? And the boot popped right back up. See? That's the way it's supposed to be. All right, so I'm going to take this over, clean this up, and then we'll come right back. Okay, so now that we have everything cleaned up, we're just going to put a very little bit of a bead of silicone on the mounting surface where that bracket is going to connect onto. Just like that. And we're going to take our mounting kit, our hardware, just push it on, just like that. That's it. Same thing on here. All right. I'm just going to tap this down to make sure it's in all the way. Okay, so now it's in all the way. I just want to point out one more thing to you as well. These are your old brake pads, of course. These are your new brake pads. Now, brake pads come in two different kinds. They have the outer and they have the inner. Now this one, as you can see, it has that little sensor right on here. See that sensor? That sensor comes in contact with the rotor and it tells you when it needs brakes. So you have to make sure that when you put it back together, you make sure you put the brake pad on that has the sensor in the correct location, because left side and right side are different. The left side would actually have the sensor up on this location here, so it would be a mirror image of this one. All right, so we know that this is the inner brake pad because that's where the piston was touching, and that's the brake pad right there with the sensor on the bottom. All right, so now we know this is the inner brake pad. Again, every place that the brake pad is going to touch, you put a little bit of silicone, just like that. This was the inner brake pad. So we take the inner pad, put it into here, like that. And now, it slides nice and freely as it's supposed to. We're going to put our other brake pad in here as well, just like this. And that's it. We're ready to put it back together. All right. So now what we're going to do is you put this over the top, just like this. Squeeze the brake pads together, and now we'll grab our screws that we previously took out. We're going to put a little bit of anti-seize on these because they are a little bit rusted. And then we're going to screw them both in by hand, loosely, before we do anything else. You'll have to slide your bracket up and down so that you can get your bolt in, and then you'll feel it pop right in. And now that we have both bolts caught, we can screw these down tight. All right, let me look it up. I'm going to torque these down, and then we'll come right back. Okay, and that is how we tapped it back in. We put the centering bar on here, or a long punch, whatever you have, and tapped it all the way through. And now we'll put that nut back on here, and we'll tighten that up. All right, now we're going to screw that nut back on here. Now again, there's torque specs on this too. I'm just going to air gun this in for now, and then I will look it up and torque that in to the proper foot-pounds. Remember, we're going to hold that bolt in the back so it doesn't rotate That was at 17 millimeter. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to reattach our caliper. We'll hang our caliper back on here. We're going to lubricate every place that the brake pad is going to touch the caliper. So we'll continue with that. Every place that's going to touch the brake pad, we're just going to put a little bit of the synthetic brake grease on there. And now we're going to put this over the top like this. And you may have to rotate these slide pins to get back in here the way it's supposed to, because the slide pins, they need to fit into that flat area right there. So we're probably going to have to rotate these a little bit, just like that. Push it in. You're going to catch them both by hand before you do anything. And again, remember I said about rotating it? We're going to need to rotate that slide pin like this so that the flat part fits up into this flat part right up in here. Just like that. Okay, and now the flat part is in a spot here and there where it belongs. We're going to tighten it up. All right, and that's it. Let me bring you in there. We'll talk about the backs. Okay, so what we did is we put our new rotor on. We reinstalled our 2 screws. We put that little cover back in here, that little rubber cover where the brake adjustment is for the parking brake. We reattached our brake caliper mounting bracket with the 2 bolts, one that was underneath there and the other one was up on top there. We tightened this up, we torqued it down to proper foot-pounds. We also tightened up the top bolt up here, the other bolt on the back of the bracket. We reinstalled the bolts that hold the caliper to the mounting bracket, and we lubricated every place that the brake pad is going to touch, whether it's here, here, or on the piston itself. We installed new hardware, and we lubricated everything that the pad touches. So now if we get in the car, we'll pump this brake pedal up and the pedal will come right up on top. Okay, so that's it. Backs are all done. All right, as always, thanks for watching. See you on the next one.